Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
Birds keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Meaty boys brawling, no holds barred bout. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe. Not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman?
Tune in the vibe. Morning Reds, good centers. Got me on the mic now, let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. Moment chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're both better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It's your boy, Guard E3, and welcome to almost every basketball fan's one of their favorite days of the year. Happy March Madness. Of course, it's the start of the tournament. I hope your brackets are doing okay. I hope McNeese didn't cook all of you. Now, of course, let me introduce to you, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great. March Madness has just started. This is that time, right? We get extra hype for this. I was trying to think that when you think about the biggest times, the Super Bowl is everything, but is March Madness bigger than the Super Bowl? Like, I feel like it's right there. I think the thing about March Madness is it draws you in because of all the people, the fans that are loyal to their schools, the current and former students, the current and former players. March Madness brings out everybody. It brings out families, friends, foes, you name it. And then it brings out fans who get to pick their brackets, take their shot, put their basketball minds up against the best of the best, and see what their brackets do.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to admit, I think mine's going really well so far. The only one I've really gotten wrong is I picked Georgia to beat Gonzaga, and that didn't go well for me. But you know what? I've nailed all the rest of them so far. So you know what? I'll consider that a win.
That's it. That's what's up. That's solid. Look. Let me keep it a buck. That McNeese kind of got me. I got got. Great, but good for them. Great performance by them.
I will be the first to admit that you can do as much research as you want for this tournament, but at the end of the day, it's just an absolute crapshoot. I picked McNeese to win straight off vibes. I like their name, so I picked them to win.
I like the vibe.
You do your best to research everything, and literally all my research pointed to the fact they should have lost that game. And then I would just like, you know what? I'm going to trust my gut. Something's telling me go McNeese. So it turns out my gut was right on that one. Honestly, great call by my gut.
No doubt.
But, I got to admit, before we get into our underrated player of the week, I want to do a little throwback Thursday to my favorite March Madness moment ever. You know, if you're from Philadelphia, you probably know this one. Chris Jenkins for the championship. It's got to be my favorite March Madness moment ever. That was fantastic.
That's a good one. I don't know. It's not my favorite moment, but it is the moment that when I think of March Madness that stands out the most to me. It's Grant Hill to Christian Laettner.
No, yeah, fair enough. My moments I think about the most, thinking about the tournament, are Chris Jenkins for the win. Obviously Cardiac Kemba.
Yeah,
and of course the Fab Five and the infamous timeout when they didn't have one.
that was rough. Yeah, you know what? They never won it all, but damn if the Fab Five weren't entertaining as hell.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they were fantastic together, and it's to me it's unfortunate it ended that way because it feels like they're now just remembered more for the timeout than how great they truly were, and to me that's kind of unfortunate.
Well, yeah, but you know what? I guess it worked out better. Chris was their best player. If anybody could shoulder the infamous timeout, it's better if it's Chris Webber, a guy who went on to have a Hall of Fame career, versus Ray Jackson. Maybe I don't think Ray would have held up too well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. But you know how it is, Mo. Might as well get into it. Our underrated player of the week, current, past, could be a team, executive player. So, who do you got for us this week, Mo?
My underrated player of the week, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to go Bobby Jones. In the ABA, he was with Denver. In the NBA, he spent the bulk of his career with the Sixers. 5-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA defensive defender, just a versatile player. Could score when needed, rebound, terrific in the open floor. A quiet man. They always called him the quiet man. Bobby Jones was a pros pro, big part of that Sixer team that won that championship with Moses Malone, 4-5-4. I'm just going to give the flowers out to a guy who had a great career. And I think a lot of people don't realize this because he gets lost in time. Bobby Jones is a Hall of Famer. So if you've never heard of him, YouTube him. Bobby Jones was a baller. So shout out to Bobby Jones.
If you want to see somebody who's the lead on defense, probably look up the guy whose nickname is the Secretary of Defense.
Yes.
He is an absolutely lockdown defender. And I remember giving him flowers as one of the greatest defensive forwards of all time. So he was just an absolutely terrific weapon on that end. That's a really good one. I love that. I'm going to give my flowers to somebody who is durable, reliable, and durable. Mo, how about AC Green? Somebody who he wasn't the flashiest. He was never going to be mistaken for a star. But when you're talking about a guy who was there every single week, didn't take a game off, didn't take, plays off, I want to give him his flowers because he had a level of consistency and just kind of longevity in terms of his streak for, not missing games was wild. So, you know what? I'm going to give AC Green his flowers. That man showed up every weekend, did whatever role that you asked him to do, and he did it as best as he possibly could.
I like that you shouted out how dependable and how durable he was. Like, he was a true Iron Man. I just remember him as a kid that came out of college, the Lakers drafted, and the first thing I said is, somebody's got to tell this kid he's got to let go of the Jerry curl. But he didn't let it go. I think AC rocked it throughout his career. AC was just a really good, sound basketball player. You can book AC Green for 12 to 13 points, 8 or 9 rebounds, tough defender, the epitome of a glue guy. He actually made it I think he made an all-star team, just had a very good, underappreciated career. So that's a great call. AC Green, a champion, just a really good basketball player. He was part of Showtime, but if you knew his game, he was anything but showy, just hard work, lunch pail type of guy.
Yeah, absolutely, Mo. And this week, ironically, I think madness is almost the perfect way to describe this week because, there's a couple things that are just maddening. We got maddening takes. The first thing that's maddening is I go on Twitter today, Mo, and the first thing I see, Stephen A is still talking about LeBron. Like, dog, let it go. It's been like 3 weeks since you said that it was fine. Like, just let it go, please.
It's annoying. See, the problem with a guy like him is when he takes an L, he can't take the L. So he just keeps talking and talking, and then he doubles and triple downs on his BS. And we get it. You've already made your kind of apology tour, but then near the end of the apology tour, you started being unapologetic again. Look, he is who he is. You got to give the man credit. When you think of guys and personalities in sports and media, he's at the top of the food chain. That doesn't make him right, because he says a lot of things that are just weird and out of pocket. Like, he's got like 2 real weird obsessions. The first one is obviously with LeBron. I would say the second one is with the Dallas Cowboys. And then the third one is, it's like a personal thing. Like, maybe Kawhi Leonard didn't sign somebody he knew autograph, or they were pursuing the same person and it didn't work out his way. There's a really, really weird thing where he's just obsessed with Kawhi Leonard. And he'll tell a story, but he doesn't tell the whole story. Like, I saw Kawhi Leonard drop 30-something points in the playoff game for Phoenix, and then he walked off the court fine. He didn't walk off the court fine. He tore his meniscus. Now, the fact that he didn't limp or get into a wheelchair, Paul Pierce style, that doesn't mean that he didn't tear his meniscus. It just means he walked off under his own power. To make the assumption that he likes to make is he walked off fine, the next thing you know, he's out the game, like, because he had a torn meniscus. Most guys with torn meniscus, or anybody with half a brain, you're not going to play on a torn meniscus.
No, absolutely. And, when you have adrenaline pumping like Kawhi did, like, you're probably still going to be able to walk off on it, like,
Right.
unless it's completely shredded. We've seen guys like torn Achilles, torn meniscus, ACL, like, they can walk on it with the adrenaline pumping and everything. So, that's hardly like the least, far-fetched thing that I've ever heard. We watch guys shoot free throws on torn Achilles, but
look,
yeah.
I played in the game, and I played the whole game. But you know how you run, but you feel something is just off.
Yeah.
But I ran, and I still played, and then I ended up going to the hospital later that night, and I had a torn meniscus. Plain and simple. My point is, you got to let go of this obsession with the fact that Kawhi Leonard has missed a lot of games. I would be with you if Kawhi Leonard have a reputation of being a slacker or lazy or an underachiever. For whatever reason, the gods that are in control of health and well-being, they don't love Kawhi Leonard. They don't. That's just his lot in life. He doesn't get, the way it goes is as you get older, it doesn't get better. But to imply that Kawhi Leonard, I don't know, like he fakes injury, or you have some information that he's not as injured as he says he is, you gotta let some of that stuff go, man. The takes are stupid, and they're personal and stupid. You got to move on from that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the funny part with Kawhi. Like, you can tell he tries and he does his best every time. Like you said, the man tore his meniscus and still gave the Suns a 30-piece, which they couldn't do anything about. Like,
right.
Healthy, plays at the level of a Finals MVP, which he's, done twice. So he's one guy that I hope is able to, he'll never be 100% most likely, but I really hope that he can, give us a couple more healthy-ish seasons, and more importantly, a couple of healthy playoff runs in the coming years. Hopefully this year. I'm hoping and excited to see him back in the playoffs.
I'm with you. And I'm not, it's not me. I'm not rooting for the Clippers, but as a fan, I'm rooting for the individual player of Kawhi Leonard too. I just want him to be healthy and have like a good 3-year run where he's healthy and could just play basketball.
No, yeah, absolutely. But you know what's probably the maybe craziest take that you'll hear this week, Mo? Mr. And this is somebody I hold near and dear to my heart. Brandon Jennings. He kind of ironically set the war cry for our 2021 championship run with Bucks in 6. But in all reality, when he said that, he was being absolutely delusional in 2011 or 2012 when he said that Bucks in 6 when we went up against Miami, when everybody in the world knew that that was a 4-game series waiting to happen. And he's back at it again, Mo. He's back at it again. He said that he could beat Drew Holiday in a 1v1. He was talking about all the players that he how good he was, how he's better than Drew Holiday. And it led to this very interesting interaction with multiple people from that 09 draft class. So now Brandon Jennings has officially challenged Lou Williams, Jeff Teague, and Ty Lawson to ones, which I guess would be entertaining. So I guess we'll start there, Mo. Brandon Jennings, Drew Holiday, one-on-one. Who is the better player? Like, what did you make of that whole, Brandon Jennings rant about Drew Holiday?
I think that there's something going on in Gil's Arena where everybody on there remembers their career in an alternative universe. What would it matter if Brandon Jennings played Drew Holiday today in 2025 in a game of one-on-one? Let's assume Brandon Jennings wins that game. What would that prove? It wouldn't prove anything. Had he played him when they were both 25 years old and he won, it wouldn't have proved anything. It would have proven he was the better one-on-one player. But what he isn't, and there's anybody would have a brain knows, he isn't a better basketball player than Drew Holiday. I know the line that he used was Drew Holiday was never better at basketball than I was. He was when you both got to the next level. And that's kind of like all that really matters. And I made a statement, and I believe it's factual. If Brandon Jennings is on last year's Celtics team, Boston ain't got no championship. He was not a winning player. Brandon Jennings was a chucker. If you shoot below 40% for your career, that's who you are. If you shoot below the NBA minimum from the three-point line, you are just a out-and-out chucker. What we'll never say about Brandon Jennings is first, second, or third team All-NBA defense. He ain't guarding nobody, he ain't stopping nobody. So really, even if you want to say he want to challenge everybody to ones, the guys that are currently in the league, why would you play him? That's like punching down. You would be boosting him up if you agreed to it. Drew's not going to go there. But more importantly, if he was as good as he said he was, why weren't teams breaking their neck to try to sign Brandon Jennings? Like he was done before he was 30. I'm sorry. I thought the best version of Brandon Jennings, you might disagree with me, was the rookie year when he came out. I saw the game where he dropped 55. It was an amazing game. Here's the thing, though. After that 55-point performance, there was the other 81 games in the season. He finished averaging 15 points a game, shooting well below 40% from the field and below the NBA 35% I think is the middle ground or the average. He was never a great shooter. He was never a great player. If you want to make the argument that he was incredibly talented, you could tell me he's more talented than Drew, more talented than Jeff Teague. Being more talented doesn't make you a better player. It just makes you talented. So I get it. He needs to feel good about himself. So to make that statement, yeah, it's a factual statement. You were better than Jeff Teague and Drew Holiday when you guys were all in high school. Good for you.
Yeah, obviously it's funny because the people defending him are like, well, you don't know peak Brandon Jennings before he tore his Achilles. I'm like, the problem is normally when you watch a player become great, you'll see the evolution in their game. Like you'll see them continue to evolve.
Right.
If you watch Brandon Jennings' rookie year and Brandon Jennings right up to before he tore his Achilles, it's the same player.
Same exact player.
It didn't do anything different. His calling card was offense, and he was highly inefficient at that. When he was on, he was fun, but Drew Holiday would absolutely recommend ones. I have no doubt about that.
First of all, how's he gonna guard Drew? Do you know how big and strong Drew is? No disrespect to Ja Morant, but Brandon Jennings is kind of built like Ja. Drew doesn't have to do anything fancy. He can literally bully ball himself to the basket. Look, I get it. It seems like on Gil's Arena saying out of pocket takes, it's kind of like the norm. It is the norm. And we can do a hypothetical about what might happen if they played a game of one-on-one. But I'd rather just go with the reality and go with the known. In the known, Drew Holiday is a championship player. He's a 6-time All-NBA defender, a 2-time All-Star. He had a great career and is still in the midst of being in a great career, but in a different role. Brandon Jennings, I don't even judge Brandon Jennings from where he messed up his knee. I'm strictly going off of his 6 most productive years. And you pointed out in those 6 most productive years where he averaged around 15 a game, he had one season where he averaged 19. You still shot under 40%, man. You were a chucker. And when anybody goes, you never saw peak Brandon Jennings, you never saw peak Brandon Jennings. There was no peak Brandon Jennings. If that's his peak, why is he talking?
And the funny part, too, is the follow-up of he doesn't want to hear non-franchise players talking about him, and that one got me, too. I'm like
does that include himself?
Like, I know you were the franchise player, I guess, for the Milwaukee Bucks for 4 years, maybe 3 if you want to say, Monta Ellis overtook him for a couple of years while he was here, but not all franchise players are built the same. Let me put it that way. And, we had some fun moments, I guess, but also the reality is those moments are few and far between because it was from 2009 to 2013, it was down in the trenches for Bucks fans because they won enough games that they were able to barely sneak into the playoffs or barely miss and were just completely mediocre. And it was rough. That's the worst spot to be in. And that's kind of where Brandon Jennings, the franchise player, took you. You were either barely good enough to sneak into the playoffs or you were just bad enough to miss it, but you were not getting that high draft pick.
That's a scary notion, just attaching the word franchise player to somebody that had that type of career. I'm sorry. I think he was talented, but I think it was somebody that didn't really work on his game because, like you said, from year one, I'm strictly staying with the years where he played. From year 1 to year 6, exact same player. Nothing changed.
Oh yeah, no. I think it more had to do with how bad the Bucks were drafting at the time. Our team consisted of guys our leading scorer one year was John Salmons, and I think Bobby Simmons made an appearance. Bogut, we drafted Joe Alexander at that time.
That was a brutal draft pick, Joe Alexander. Wow.
We drafted Yeezy Young, and it was just not a good time to be a Bucks fan. We just had no clue how to identify talent. Thankfully, we lucked out on the Giannis draft and turned everything around at that point.
Just out of curiosity, there's certain draft picks you remember. I remember Joe Alexander. I remember way before him. I remember Tractor Trailer and how you traded it. You traded the rights for Dirk for Tractor Trailer, but whatever. Did you guys also draft Thon Maker?
Yeah.
Thon Maker, for everybody out there listening to us, basically he was supposed to be Giannis before Giannis. You know what I mean? Everybody was 7 foot tall, can shoot the 3, versatile, can put it on the. Everybody was this guy he's a project, but he's going to be all the pundits were telling me how great Thon Maker was. And I was and when you saw him play, you know, sometimes you just know. I was no, he's not going to be any of those things. I felt the same way when after I saw Thon Maker, what's the young man from Texas, another 7-footer who shot 3s and everybody said was going to be a star. Since he's been in the league, he's kind of been a journeyman. I can't remember his name right now. But he's basically was Thon Maker all over again. Y'all have to stop falling in love with guys that do really good workouts and really just look at their film and try to judge them on the player that they could project to be, not on how athletic they are or how good they look when no one's guarding them or how many reps they do on the you know what I mean? Like, or they're vertical. Like, you're gonna have to do a little bit more than that. Like, I don't understand some of these GMs, some of these scouts. Like, you really looked at this guy extensively and was like, we got to get Thon Maker. I didn't understand it, but you know, that's why I'm not a GM, because I would have looked at him and like pass.
Yeah, it's weird. I think people too many fall in love with the idea of what a player can be, and that's kind of the challenge. Like, well, Thon Maker can shoot threes. It's like, does that mean you want him to? Like, he was never that consistent at it. Then I'm like, oh, 3-point sniper in the building.
Right.
They like fall in love with the idea, like, he can do this, he can do that. Like, that doesn't mean you want him to, or he's good at it. So, like, Thon just, to me, felt like the Bucks go, yeah, you know, we just got Giannis. We got really, you know, we did great with that pick. Let's trust our development team again. Let's get Thon, and then that just didn't work out. I think his career highlight so far is almost drop kicking somebody in like a Philippine basketball game.
I remember the karate kick. Yeah. You know what? I just remembered who I was thinking about, the other guy, Mo Bamba.
Oh,
Mo Bamba was supposed to be, he could shoot threes. He's agile and quick, and look, to be clear, I'm pro player, pro athlete. I root for these guys to be as good as they're advertised. But sometimes it's not there, and sometimes it's situational, and sometimes it's the player may not have the mental toughness. Like when not everybody can live up to expectations that are through the roof. I look at Mo Bamba, and his career is pretty much similar to Thon Maker's minus the karate kick. Look, it just happens for whatever reason. For every Giannis who, when he came out, I'm gonna keep it a buck. When y'all drafted him, I was like, they must be sending this kid overseas because look, he looked spaghetti thin. I was like, when is he ever gonna play? And to his credit, he put in the work. The trainers got with him. You literally could see the development year after year after year. And what he turned into, I'm honest, I didn't see that. I had no clue that was coming, but I'm glad it happened.
yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, you know what's funny too, Mo? One of my pet peeves about draft time is, though, since, you know, we're not there yet, we got to get through the playoffs first, but, you know, thinking about March Madness and these kids and drafts, you know what drives me crazy? Hindsight drafting. Like, I hate it. I do hate it when a play, like, trying to talk to people online and they'll be like, oh, this player sucks because player B was drafted before. I'm like, oh, Darko sucks because of who was drafted after. I'm like, can we stop trying to judge players based on who was drafted after them? Like, Darko didn't suck because of who was drafted after them. Darko just sucked.
Thank you.
It wasn't anything to do with who was behind him.
Thank you.
That just made it look worse. I'd be like, yeah, well, Sam Bowie sucked because, you know, MJ got picked behind him. No, he didn't. He didn't suck because of MJ. He wasn't good in the NBA.
Right.
It is what it is. Like, that drives me crazy when people do that. They'll, like, hindsight draft, and I hate it, Mo. I just absolutely hate it.
You know what? People do it, but players do it too. I remember in an interview one time, they asked Ben Wallace of the Detroit Pistons, of the, you know, the Billups, Rip Hamilton, Sheed, that Ben Wallace, Hall of Famer Ben Wallace, if they could go back and do it all over again, would they draft Darko or draft Carmelo? And not surprisingly, Ben Wallace said the wrong thing and said, no, we would draft Darko because, you know, he was a good guy. And he said, we wouldn't draft Melo because, you know, we were a team, we were about team, and Melo was a one. And I was like, how can you make a blanket statement like that? Melo came out a rookie. He would have been a rookie on a team of veterans. You had a coach not known for playing rookies in Larry Brown. I promise you, had Melo gone to the Pistons, what wouldn't have happened is he wouldn't have started. He wouldn't have started. He would have got playing time, And my guess is eventually by the end of the season, he would have been a regular in the rotation. But you honestly think getting Carmelo would have been worse than getting Darko, who did nothing? Like, the most impressive thing Darko might have done is make a beer run when you was on the road, but he didn't do anything. If you had Carmelo Anthony on your team, even in a 6-man role with his talent, that series where LeBron goes off for like 29 in the fourth, he could have still gone off for 29, but you would have had a guy on your bench that could get 20. It would have changed everything. If Melo's in that rotation, they have more than one championship. To say that we'd be the same with Melo or Darko, come on, Ben. Maybe you and Darko are really good friends, and you don't want to tell the truth. I think it changes everything. Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed, Ben Wallace, that veteran leadership. Melo wouldn't have came in there and said, "Hey guys, I'll be taking about 19 shots a game, so just get used to it." It'd have been his career path would have been completely different. I'm not saying they would have turned Carmelo Anthony into a lockdown defender, but I think his work ethic and the knowledge of how to win, it would have been accelerated from being around them.
I'm just trying to imagine like rookie Melo walking up to like Rasheed Wallace, like, "Hey, I'm taking 19 shots a game," and I'm just imagining she like, "Yo, what the? Who's this kid?"
Right.
I feel like the personality clash would have actually been like interesting to deal with.
But only if you believe Melo would have done that. And my that's my pushback to Ben Wallace. You didn't know him from Adam. You don't know what he would have been like going to a team that was already an established championship team. You don't know. You have no clue what he would have been like. And if you're the leader that you say you are, along with Billups and Rip and Sheed, not to mention Coach Brown, you think Larry Brown lets prima donna? If you think a prima donna rookie is going to run Larry Brown, then you don't know Larry Brown.
Yeah, that would have been a perfect situation for him too. They would have been able to kind of get him in check, and it would have been a fantastic team, that's for sure. See, I don't mind like doing like hindsight drafting with hypotheticals, just not when people try to diminish other people's careers over it.
Right.
I think thinking about Melo on the Pistons is fun. I think that it flips their fortunes, and against LeBron, like you said, in 2007. You can argue that it flips their fortunes and they go back-to-back in 2005, giving them an extra scoring punch they needed against the Spurs.
Right. Remember, that's a 7-game series. And that Piston team was great, but we can both agree what they were not. They were not an offensive juggernaut, right? Well, if you have a Carmelo Anthony, even in a 6-man role, coming off the bench, giving you 16, 18 points a game, in that series, that would have absolutely made all the difference in the world. I'm not telling you Melo would have came in there and been their best player. I'm telling you, had he gone there as a rookie under that culture, it would change how you perceive him. It might even change his whole career arc. That's all I'm putting out there. For Ben Wallace to just go, look, and like I said, I'm not raining down on Darko. You already pointed out. I don't care if Melo came behind him. I don't care if Slava Medvedenko came behind him. Darko on his own merits out and out stunk. I actually saw a guy on a TikTok and a YouTube defend it and go, "No, you don't know. They saw Darko do workouts. Everybody was saying that he should be the number 1 pick in the draft. Like, the Pistons did the right thing." Like, no, they didn't do the right thing. No, they didn't. I don't know what kind of workout he was doing. Maybe he was playing against his little brothers and he looked really good. For the little bit of time you saw Darko play, 2 things stood out. 1, next to no athleticism. 2, he had the reflexes of an ailing snail. I don't know why anybody would draft an ailing snail. Don't give me that. That was one of the Joe Dumars did a lot of good things. He did 2 things that destroyed the Pistons. He drafted Darko, and then he traded for a washed-up Allen Iverson. He did that.
Yeah, and if you think that watching the workouts is always going to lead you to make the right choices, you don't know what the workouts are at. Especially like when we're talking about like, kind of foreign players in like 2004, 2005. you didn't get a ton of like game film and workout footage on those guys unless you're absolute sickos or just the teams themselves. So you don't know like what kind of workouts that man was doing most likely. And if you think they always nailed the workout portion, like that always worked out, the Milwaukee Bucks drafted Yee, and Yee was practicing closeouts in an empty gym on a chair. Like, that doesn't always work. Like, yeah, that was one of my favorite draft stories of all time with Yee and the empty gym.
That's wild too. All I'm saying is, you have film on Wade. I mean, obviously he went before that, but what the best film you had on Melo? He led Syracuse to the national championship. Like that was not the great coaching of Jim Boeheim. Jim Boeheim said, "Give the ball to Melo, get the hell out of the way." That wasn't great coaching. That was just common sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine like take the career that Melo had, Mo, and add at least 2 rings. Let's just say he wins 2. Let's say he wins in 04. He helps him win in 05. Like,
I like why you put that because you framed it like how I see it. He could have had 2. And by the way, I'm not saying Melo would be Finals MVP because I don't think he would, but he would have greatly impacted their team. That's all I'm saying. What if Carmelo Anthony has 2 rings and then he goes on to have the career that he has despite that? Like, he would, let's say he never won another title again, but don't you think as a player, especially a young player with the culture that they had there, why wouldn't that rub off on him some kind of way, right? That he won early in his career with a team of a guy that they were all dogs. If you think about it, Tayshaun Prince, Rip, Billups, the Wallaces, even Lindsey Hunter coming off the bench with guard guys 84 feet. Like, they were all dogs. And Larry Brown was that kind of coach that was no nonsense. How does that not rub off on a young, well, it didn't rub off on Darko, but you get the point. If you've got any kind of talent, it rubs off on you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and my favorite last part about, the Brandon Jennings take, and to me, this was the most hilarious one. Believes he should have taken Ray Allen's spot as an all-star starter, or as an all-star in 2011. To me, that is just the most objectively hilarious thing ever. Like, dude, like, no. Being a Bucks fan at that time, watching you every game, no. But, like, also, like, you finish. I still find it funny. I know fan vote isn't the end all be all, but, like, dog, you finished behind Raymond Felton. Like, you were never getting there.
Right. Like, look, I think the best thing about Gil's Arena is it is entertaining. They do give you insight because they were all former players. I'm not a huge Skip Bayless fan, but he said something a long time ago. And again, it was during one of his LeBron rants. And I don't care about the LeBron part of it, but he said, imagine just hanging out with friends, just lying to each other all day. like that. Just, how good I like Mashar McCants is like, I used to lock Jordan down on them pickup games. And everybody's got a story on Gil's Arena that makes everybody look levels better than they actually were.
You know who they need to bring in next then? Maybe the most delusional guy of all time, Ruben Patterson, a.k.a. the Kobe Stopper. That is still one of my favorite stories, like, ever. Like, people kept referencing the Kobe Stopper. And I'm like, who's the Kobe Stopper? So I typed it in. I'm like, no way this guy's the Kobe Stopper. Then I went and had to watch that game film of every time Kobe matched up with Ruben Patterson. I'm like, yeah, no, this guy isn't stopping anything that Kobe's doing.
Look, that was a great series. It went 7 games. It was the series that started the Kobe Shaq three-peat because they won the series and got to go to the finals. And that Portland team was loaded. Ruben Patterson was very athletic, very physical, but he couldn't really guard Kobe. He couldn't guard Kobe Bryant. They threw a lot of people at him. Ruben Patterson, Stacey Augmon, Bonzi Wells. Like, they threw multiple bodies at him because they had a strategy. They wanted to wear Kobe down. And I think it had effect because it was a 7-game series, but you got to also remember that was Kobe at age 21. He was nowhere near even hitting his peak or as a player. He still hadn't even gotten all the way into his man body. So but I laughed at that at the time because I remember a bunch of Blazers, they would huddle up around Ruben Patterson and he would have his feet in ice and they'd be like, Kobe, stop her, Kobe. And he played up to it. He loved it. Now he couldn't guard Kobe, but I guess he felt he had a moment.
You know what? And yeah, to be fair, we're still talking about him today. So, he absolutely has seized it.
He does. You know what? By that metric, guys like Ruben Patterson and Lance Stevenson, they had their moment.
Yeah, they made the most of it. Yeah, you know what? We're talking about Brandon Jennings, and it made me think of the Bucks. Mo, you know what's funny? I hate once again. I did this last week, and I get to do it again because I hate doing it, but I also like it. I like being right, but not necessarily in this way. I go after that last Bucks game. The Bucks fans are complaining. What does Kyle Kuzma even do? And they're complaining about, Kyle Kuzma and the trade. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, he was one of one in his own way. And it's weird, Mo, because now I get the victory lap, even if I don't want to. Like, oh, wait a minute. You're telling me the guy who hasn't shot well in like 3 years isn't just forgetting how to shoot? He just straight up can't shoot? Like, it's frustrating to watch because people are wondering why after since the All-Star break, Giannis' stats have dropped a bit. And people are wondering why. It's because teams are taking their centers and putting them on Kyle Kuzma and just clogging up Giannis' driving lanes and forcing him to shoot. So I really hope that somehow, some way, he just goes on an absolute heater when the playoffs start. But holy cow, this has not been fun to watch as a Bucks fan.
I can only imagine. And I agree with what Jory just said. Jory, you're 100% right. That is the real Kyle Kuzma. You and I, Brett, talked about this when the trade went through. I thoroughly stood on the fact that Kyle Kuzma was not an upgrade from Chris Middleton. He got them slightly younger. By the way, he's not as young as people think he is. I believe Kyle Kuzma's 30 or 31. So he got you a little bit younger, but you didn't get better because he's not even better than the current version of Chris Middleton. He's not a good three-point shooter. The only thing that he can give you consistently is you can play faster if you get out in the open floor, but in the half court, he's kind of useless. I feel like Kyle Kuzma on the floor has made it a lot easier to guard Giannis. At least with Chris Middleton, when he wasn't shooting well, he still was a really good playmaker. He still could do other things, the intangibles. And Kyle Kuzma is not that kind of guy. Kyle Kuzma, by the way, I predict within the next 3 or 4 years, he will also be added to Gil's Arena.
Say, Kuzma's an old rookie. Wasn't he drafted at like 23? Like, he was an older rookie, too.
I think he was like 25. Yeah, he was an older rookie. Facts.
Oh, yeah. It's just frustrating to watch because he'll be wide open and decide to not pull the trigger and like make the most boneheaded choice, or he just has not been able to capitalize on the advantages that he does have. And I hated that idea, right, Mo? Because Bucks fans told me, I'm trying to tell me that too. Just, we can play faster. We can play in transition.
Right.
When it comes to playoff basketball, what are normally the two things that really get minimized because of attention to detail? One is transition, because of attention to detail goes way higher in the playoffs,
right,
and offensive rebounding. So they're like, oh, but we got better in transition. We got better, rebounding. Like, don't actually care that much. Like, it's frustrating. And now, Bucks fans are, the big complaint was about, Bobby Portis. Well, guess what? This trade also does. Now we desperately need Bobby Portis. So now that same guy you were complaining about, he is now all of a sudden maybe like one of the most invaluable members on the court because he's one of the few guys that can actually generate a decent look in the half court. So I'm curious because he'll be back soon, and I'm curious to see what the Bucks look like when Bobby Portis is back.
Let me ask you this question. Obviously, you're a diehard Bucks fan. When you look at the Eastern Conference, and obviously Boston and the Cavs are above you, the Knicks are above you. Although I don't think the Knicks can beat the Bucks in the series, but that has nothing to do with the bigger picture. The bigger picture is, do you look at your Bucks and go, you know what, we're gonna be fine. I think we can out and out win the East, or do you look at your Bucks and go, we need a little help to win the East. Like we need Boston or Cleveland to knock one another off, right? And then we get to play the other one or something like that, right? I don't think the Bucks have enough to beat both of them. I think they need one to take out the other. I got into that conversation today on the morning show, and Cottrell was like, "Oh, you're down on Dame, but he's having a better year than Steph." And not really. Their numbers are almost identical. The only difference is Steph is having what we would call a down shooting year for him, and he's still shooting better than Dame. So I don't think Dame's having a better year. I think that, and I think that in the bigger picture, who would I trust more in a postseason? It would be Steph. I thought the pairing of Giannis and Dame originally seemed better on paper than in reality, because I thought the Bucks should have got Dame like 2 years earlier. He's still a high-level player, but I don't see him as a superstar at this stage of his career. I think he's more of an all-star.
Yeah, it's one of those things with Dame. I think he's actually been, I think he's been great for it. It's not even the fact that I'm down on like Giannis or I'm down on Dame. Like I still believe in those two. I think Dame has been great for us. Actually, I think he's one of the best point guards in the East for sure. It's more so. It really comes down to like, is Kuzma going to be able to hit his shots, or are we going to be playing 5-on-4? If Kuzma can even hit like 36% of his threes wide open, because that's what these are, they're wide open looks, then you know what? We might be okay. We might be able to get out of this. But, if, Kuzma's going to shoot like he has and just be an absolute, brick from distance and allow, Giannis's driving lanes to get clogged up. And not only that, Dame's driving lanes get clogged up, and that is going to really hurt. So I think we'll need some help, but I think that help really does have to come from Kyle Kuzma. He just has to be better come playoff time. Otherwise, I don't know if we get out of the second round.
Look, if everybody goes into the postseason healthy, that's always an important factor to illuminate. The Celtics will play the Cavaliers in the conference finals. Now, could somebody upset somebody? Sure, that's the beauty of sports, but the NBA is a little bit different from March Madness. You're going to have to upset somebody 4 times. And if you beat somebody 4 times, that's not an upset. You're just out now better than them. I don't think any team in the East, if everybody's healthy, can beat Boston 4 times. Not in the East. I think the Cavaliers have a puncher's chance because they've been terrific up until this 3-game losing streak they're on. They've been terrific, but the spotlight gets a lot brighter in the postseason, and you wonder if a lot of guys can take their regular season game with them to the postseason. Like I already know what Donovan Mitchell is going to do. I actually think I know what Darius Garland going to do. But I need to see what Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, and more importantly, all those guys on the bench that have been terrific all year for the Cavs, are they going to be able to carry over and be that way when, like you said, we're not running now. Now it's about defense and half-court execution. And even though they're not the most dominant champion I've ever seen, the Celtics are a really good team. And when they're whole, I don't know if anybody can beat them. I don't think that's front running to go, well, look, until somebody proves me wrong, why wouldn't I say the Celtics are going to win the East?
No, and you know what? That's fair. I think at this point, they've more than earned the benefit of the doubt, even if they're not the 1 seed. Like,
Right.
at the end of the day, if you're going to put money on anybody to win the East, the safest bet is going to be the Celtics. I think they're right now second in odds right now, only behind the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the finals.
Yeah.
But right now, I would still pick Boston over Oklahoma City if it came down to it.
But okay, so in your eyes, though, let's say if you look at the odds, so what we should say is we're going to see Boston against Oklahoma City.
Yeah, according to the odds, yeah.
Now, look, and according to most pundits and people, just call me the weird guy. And again, it's not a prejudice because I love everything that Sam Presti's done and is about. I love that the core of the Thunder is organic. They drafted those guys, they developed those guys, and then they added 2 proven veterans when it comes to Hartenstein and one of my favorite players, Alex Caruso. But he's a terrific GM. They're set up for success. They have a terrific superstar who I think is one of the most versatile two-way players in the NBA. I don't care who wins the MVP. I'm just talking about him as a talent and his skill set. I guess the question with the Thunder for me is I've seen SGA play well in the postseason. I have not seen Jalen Williams elevate his game, and this will be our first chance to see Chet in the postseason. And I think the key to them getting to the finals, it's not SGA. It's what J-Dub and Chet does in the postseason.
Yeah, I think J-Dub can do it, but it's something too that I still got to see from him. He's gonna be the guy that really makes or breaks the difference. Like Shea, I think he proved himself, right? Like we can talk about, well, the fouls are going to go down in the postseason, and my response to that is, yeah, they did last year, and he was still the best player in a series that involved Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So to me, he was clearly the best player in that Dallas and OKC series. So to me, he's already proved himself. He's going to come in and he's going to ball out. But yeah, it's going to come down to J-Dub. Are the nerves going to hit Chet? Will he be able to knock down his open threes? So I think what's going to really help in that regard is Isaiah Hartenstein. The addition of Hartenstein and his playmaking and connection with Chet, like they're running some wild stuff out there. I've never seen like a team run handoffs with 2 7-footers, but here we are. It's insane. So, but yeah, I think the real X factor offensively, it's gonna come down to J-Dub. Can he elevate his game to be a true number 2 option?
By the way, I do agree with Jory just said, but to be fair, Jory, Laker fans have to be fair. If you think that SGA grifts for fouls, what about Luka? Now, Luka's our guy. He's on our team. But I've said this before because it's facts. Luka wants calls before the opening tap. And like nobody grifts for calls more than Luka. If you think about the biggest foul grifters, Harden, Luka, Trae Young, SGA, and even at this stage of his career, I'd say maybe DeRozan. Those are foul grifters, but Luka's right there. I don't know why SGA is getting all this attention. I'm watching the Laker game last night, and we're beating the hell out the Nuggets, and they brought up an interesting stat. They said Luka shot 39 free throws in the last 3 games. That is a foul grifter.
You know what I always love too. That we always talk about. Say he watched too much LeBron early on. Luka's just as guilty. Hey, yeah. Underrated foul grifter, Chris Paul.
Oh, that's a good one. Good one.
Especially as soon the move, the rip through. As soon as you reach your hand in the cookie jar, right. He's going through the shooting motion or trying to draw 2. Yeah, no, him. But I always love watching the non-superstar players that get a stupid good whistle. Like Austin Reeves gets a ridiculous whistle sometimes.
He does, because he's really good at like contorting his body like somebody's knocking the hell out of him. He's really good at it.
Yeah, and I remember watching the one Blazers game, and being absolutely stunned when I turned it on. It's like, oh yeah, okay, so Jeremy Grant has 20 free throws. I'm like, what did Jeremy Grant do to get 20 free throws? Let's see, CP3 taught Wemby how to fly.
Well, Jory, they are the Spurs, and they've got one of the all-time greatest floppers in their Hall of Fame, Manu Ginobili. I love Manu, but he was a master flopper.
He absolutely is. I'm curious too. We're watching Detroit ball out, Mo, and I almost think at this point, I think he's almost is one. I guess my question to you about Detroit is: Cade Cunningham for you a lock for an All NBA team, and if so, which one? Like I've seen people try to argue him onto the first team, even though I think he's probably going to get like the second or third team. But I think first team's out of reach for him. But
I was going to say second team. I think the way he's played, look, maybe they'll surprise me and he'll get first team, but I'm projecting that he's going to be All NBA second team, and that's still a great honor for him. Brett, before the season started, we had a conversation about what each team's goals were and what they projected to be or what they should aspire to be, and I told you, as their best player, Cade Cunningham's responsibility was to make Detroit respectable again. I didn't say nothing about playoffs. I said respectable because they were coming off a season, as you know, where they only won 14 games. So I was going to be the guy that if they won 30 games or 35 games, that's respectable. What they've done, when you look at his development, when you look at where the rest of the young core has gone, not to mention some smart moves by adding veterans like a Tobias Harris, that was smart. Tim Hardaway Jr., that was smart. Then bringing in Malik Beasley, who gave them another floor spacer. And then Thompson, the other Thompson brother, who's another elite athletic wing defender. They're a talented young team. And I think they've had a terrific season. And I hope their general manager, their coach, their fan base can do something that most fan bases can't do. And you know this. I hope they can be patient and just let these young men to continue to develop. I hope they don't go, well, they made the playoffs this year, so next year we're thinking championship. Like, don't do that. Don't make the leap. There is a process to this. And sometimes you take a step back to take 3 steps forward. So I like what they've done. I like Bickerstaff as the coach because he's created a culture. They were 27th in the NBA in defense last year. They're 9th in defense this year. That's a huge swing for a young core to make. So I like where they're going. And if you want to root for an underdog to go on a deep run, I'm rooting for the Pistons to go on a deep run.
Glad to see Detroit playing good basketball, unlike the big hater in Chuck. Cade coming into his own. Yeah, absolutely.
He's terrific. I agree, Jory.
Fan base doesn't want to go back to where they were, so they have no choice but to be patient. Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, I agree. It's just something I've said before. You just don't want them to see them fall into the trap of, we made this big jump. Maybe we're just one piece away, and then you make some really ill-advised trade, kind of like how the Hawks thought they were one piece away, and we're like, you know what the answer is? DeJounte Murray. Like, okay, that's really not the answer. And you just traded away half your picks to get DeJounte Murray, so what did we really accomplish here? Now you're just kind of stuck with a mediocre team. So I think if they're patient, they just let the process continue to build, just wait for the right guys to become available. Hey, you know what? Keep all your blue chip prospects and all your picks, and maybe if somebody like Devin Booker becomes available, you can easily get into the sweepstakes for him.
Which would be a great pickup, by the way. A backcourt of Cade Cunningham and D Book. Oh my, I like the way that sounds. But Detroit needs to be smart. That's all I'm saying. Like what they don't need to do. Don't do what the Suns did and make a panic move and trade away your future because you think we need to swing for the fences and bring in a big name. That has not worked out. I know you're aware of the standings. Phoenix is on the outside looking in. Like they would have to win some games to get into the play-in, Brett. Not make the playoffs, but get in the play-in. How are you unable to walk down a Dallas team that doesn't have any of its best players? What's wrong with the culture with that franchise?
Well, you know what, Mo? As of tonight, they have officially done it. Though they have sneaked into the 10th seed,
What?
as they hold the tiebreaker over Dallas, so they're barely in it right now.
Wow.
Okay. That is maybe the most unimpressive thing I've ever heard. Like, yeah, it took you half, like almost till the end of the season to catch the corpse of the Dallas Mavericks,
Right.
who like are probably going to be starting their janitor tomorrow. But like, congratulations, I guess. Boone, this is no. Let's change the name here. We can say Budenholzer, and he probably will, and that's the sad part. This should say though, James Jones will be fired at the end of the season. Erase this if they don't move on from KD. Just James Jones has to go.
Yes.
This is a guy who normally a good GM will have a long-term vision as to what they want the team to be. James Jones is, hey, this big move didn't work. I'm going to double down and make another splashy move. And so I don't even want to know what his fix would be. His fix would, is he going to make the right move and trade for assets to retool around Booker? And, you're stuck with Beal, so you might as well try to retool around him too. Or, and this is what I fear James Jones will do, will you look for the biggest name possible, even if the fit's clunky, and make that trade. I don't think James Jones has any idea what he's doing at this point, and I don't think he has a direction for this franchise. I think he just has to go at this point.
I couldn't have said it better, partner. James Jones started out with the Suns, and he was making every right move. When you drafted and brought in Bridges along with Cam Johnson, we can make jokes about the inconsistency of DeAndre Ayton, but had you kept Ayton, kept Cam Johnson, kept Bridges, you would not be in 10th place. I promise you. Had you kept that core together with Booker, they'd be a playoff team. Now I'm not going to go crazy and say they would have won a title, but they'd be a playoff team. That you have a team with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker. I don't care about Bradley Beal, but just Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, and you're celebrating getting into the 10th spot.
Right. And I feel like you can retool around D-Book and kind of turn it around next year in all reality. I think it's possible, but you just have to look for the right fit and not the biggest name. So Let me guess. Oh, Mo, I never mind. I see it already. The rumor's there. KD to the Mavericks, and his big move is going to be a Booker, Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal big three in 2026. I feel like that's going to be the James Jones move. Other picks and everything will be involved, but oh no. Oh, the rumors are true because now it just makes sense. He's going to make one final trade to truly bury the Phoenix Suns, I feel like, before he gets fired. He's the guy that's down $25,000 at the casino and decides to mortgage the house instead of trying to figure out a way out of it. And Jory says I'm calling it Trae Young to the Suns. So
I don't love it, but I do love the take because knowing Phoenix, I think James Jones is kind of the Daryl Morey mindset. Rather than recognizing we made a mistake, we need to get out of this, he's going to triple down and try to make another deal and bring in another big name. And if that trade went down, the first thing you would realize is because of his skill set, the thing that makes Trae Young what makes Trae Young, there's no way he and Booker would work together. But Booker's not going to sit over in the corner and watch Trae Young dribble the air out of the shot clock and then make a decision. That will not work.
And Trae Young plays best with young athletic screen setters. And the only guy that fits that description on the Suns is Nick Richards. Unless you're really dying to play Nick Richards big minutes, that also could be very awkward. Isolation basketball, that's normally the calling card of Phoenix. They'd have to switch to a more spread pick and roll offense to really incorporate the full Trae Young experience.
Right.
And I don't think they'd make the necessary adjustments for it, but that is absolutely a James Jones move. Just stack the talent and, be under the delusion that the talent will always make it work, which is not true at all. We've seen throughout the history of basketball.
Facts. I think look, Budenholzer's a great coach. He's proven that he's one of the better coaches in basketball. And he's still a young enough man. He can be the guy that leads them into the next iteration of the Suns with Booker being your main player. If you're not going to try to fix things, move on from Durant and some of these other guys, then you might as well do a full-scale rebuild and move Booker and try to get the most assets you can get for him too.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I'm hoping the best for Coach Bud. Always respect him for bringing us our title, but yeah, no, I'd love to see him, lead the next rebuild. That would be great. It's funny because I see a lot of people go after Coach Bud, but
right.
The reality is, like, your Coach Bud schemes just don't really work with the Phoenix Suns roster. I think that was apparent when they announced the signing of Coach Bud. Like, Coach Bud really likes to play a lot of drop coverage. And the problem with Coach Bud and drop coverage is you need really good screen navigators if you want to play drop coverage. Well, you gave him a roster with Tyus Jones, who isn't good at navigating a screen. Bradley Beal, good luck with that. And, Devin Booker, he competes on defense in isolation situations, but, he can be picked off too. So the problem, once again, with that Coach Bud scheme is he's going to want to stay in a drop. And if your guards can't get around screens, your defense is going to pay for it every time.
Agreed. So, yeah, I just think Phoenix is in this weird NBA purgatory. It'll be interesting to see what they do going forward. And it's funny because as a fan, there's part of me that wants them to make a run, Brett, that wants them to find a way to get into the playoffs. But then there's another part of me that's like, what's the point? If they get into the playoffs, they're going to be the 8th seed. Guess who they play? They're going to get annihilated by OKC. Do I really want to? I don't want to sign up for that. I don't want to see Kevin Durant and D Book get massacred. It's a pointless endeavor. I'm not doing that.
If Phoenix are in purgatory, the Mavericks are. Yeah.
Thanks to Nico.
They traded all their picks to build around Luka, and then just traded Luka for one pick, and didn't even replenish those picks. So. Hey, they got 2 years to win a title before it all goes to crap for them. Actually, no, they got 2 years to tank, really, before it all goes to crap. And
Brett, but you know how this works, right? I don't think the Lakers are going to win the title this year. But should they go on some miraculous run and win the title, if you think Mavs fans were sick to their stomach with the knowledge that Luka was traded, how do you think they're going to feel if the hated Lakers win another title because Luka helped LeBron win another title? And they're going to riot. They're going to lose their minds.
There's going to be riots in Dallas if that happens. I can't even imagine just how much of a mess that would be. Good for the Lakers if they pull it off, but my goodness. Could you imagine trying to be Nico coming back to Dallas if the Lakers win the finals?
I want Nico to explain to the owner, like, I know it looks bad now, but we got a plan. Like, AD's getting healthy, Kyrie's gonna be like, I can see this now. Like, we're gonna make a couple of more moves around the edges. We're still good. Like, on this, I hope he's right, because Kyrie is such a freak of nature with his quickness and his ball handling. I hope he comes back and that ACL is 100%. I want it to be 200% right because I want Kyrie to look like Kyrie. And when you shift and you stop and go the way he does, that ACL better be 150% times 10 right.
Yeah, you know it. You know what? You know, a good free agent target for the Mavs. You know, Quentin Grimes kid's pretty good.
And by the way, Sixer fans, y'all better tell Quentin Grimes we're trying to lose more games.
Yeah, I'll give that man all the credit in the world. Somebody didn't tell him they're trying to tank, and he's out here dropping 40 bombs, and I'm just like, I didn't realize you had this in you. Okay, Quentin, I see you.
I knew he was a good player. I'd been telling a friend of mine who's a diehard Knicks fan that y'all made a mistake letting Grimes go. And then when Dallas traded him for the other Martin brother, I was like, that had to be about money. And then come to find out that's all it was. It was about the Sixers saving money. But in the end, they actually got the better player. I think Quentin Grimes in your starting lineup as your fourth option that can get you 15 or 16 a night. Yes, easily. And he plays defense. Like, you don't have to go looking for places, Philly. Like, you've got some young talent. Like, most of it is hurt, but you need to move off Joel Embiid. You need to trust in Tyrese Maxey's talent. The young man from Duke who got injured, but he was sensational up until he got injured. They've had a couple of rookies turn out and show that they can play at a high level. Now you throw in a guy like Grimes, who's still a young man. I believe he's 23, 24. The only problem with Philly is, though, you're still stuck with the monster contract of Paul George. If you can't trade Embiid, that's another monster. Because, by the way, I don't think that's everybody wants Embiid. Nobody wants a center that lets it be known publicly, I'm going to need another surgery this offseason. And it's going to be a long recovery period. That to me is, we're not trading for that guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I see people like put out articles like, oh, yeah, some realistic Paul George trade packages. Like, is it just going to be a blank article? Like, unless if it's going to be you're giving up like a 2 firsts and taking back a really bad contract, like, it ain't happening. It's over. Let it go.
Even a team like the Hornets, who historically make bad deals, they're not trading for Paul George.
Yeah, absolutely. And I gotta pick on our friends here on the Wire to Wire podcast network, by the way.
Oh, I know where you're going. I know. No, maybe I'm wrong. You're not going there. No, I think you are. I think you are. If it's about basketball, then that's where you're going.
Yeah, it is about basketball. I never want to hear John Stockton fringe top 10 cases ever again. That should never happen. Shout out to our guys over at the Sports Report. They're fantastic.
They are.
But I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't. We just can't do it. No, we're not doing John Stockton cases for a top 10 in 2025. That was already disproven by 2005. We're 20 years past that. Like,
I gotta tell you though, you saw the show. He made an impassioned case.
I'll give him credit. He did his best. He was fantastic. He was fantastic on the show. But that one, I just couldn't do it. I had to bring it up because that drove me crazy. Like, here's your case for John Stockton to come even close to that, is you have to convince everybody that the Utah Jazz were completely carried by John Stockton for the entirety of his career, and all their successes owed to John Stockton. And trying to go that line of thinking is insanely disingenuous to guys like Karl Malone. So that was probably the wildest take I heard this week.
It was wild. Was wild. But you know what? Sometimes you get takes that everybody says the same take. No one, you're not going to find multiple people to go, I've always felt that way too. Like, you're not going to hear that. That was unique because when he said it at the time, the only thing was missing was the music from Hoosiers in the background. Like, because he was like, he never played for himself. He only played, you know what I mean? Like, I it was wonderful, and it's true. He was unselfish, but there are a lot of guys that were unselfish and played for themselves, and they're not top 10 players either. Like, I just thought, and like I said, to be clear, if you guys enjoy what we do on M1, enjoy the morning show and all the other shows on Wire to Wire, the sports reporters on Monday, they are the most entertaining group you will see on any show. They're entertaining, opinionated, and they know sports inside and out. On that one particular take, maybe got it wrong a little bit. Look, you can't be a top 10 player all time if you're not even. You would have to be the best point guard of all time, or the second best, and you would have to have the impact. Think about what we're talking about, the impact. You would have to have an impact bigger than Magic Johnson or Steph Curry. That didn't happen. Now, if you want to say John Stockton is the quintessential point guard, I agree. But the problem with that is, so is Chris Paul, so is Jason Kidd, and guys like that. You're not. Steph Curry changed the way the game was played. He's the greatest shooter of all time. And again, what he and Magic have in common is they have multiple championships. There's an argument there. They're also both multiple-time MVPs. There's an argument there. John Stockton was never going to be the MVP on the Utah Jazz. You know why? As good as he wasn't the best player in the Utah Jazz. That was Karl Malone.
Yeah, like you said, all love to the sports report guys. Love you. You have a great show. But I had to bring that one up. I think what people forget about with, top 10, right, is I feel like part of the criteria has to be you have to be the best player in the league. Like, at least in the conversation.
At some point, right?
Like, you have to be the best player in the league, or at least in that conversation for an extended period of time. Like,
fair.
Find me somebody in the top 10 who wasn't at least in the conversation. You can argue Steph Curry was never the best, never truly the best player in the league, and that's fine, but he was always in the conversation ever since like 2015 with guys like LeBron James.
Yes, that's facts.
You can argue that, Larry Bird wasn't always the best player in the league. You can argue that, after the back injury, Magic was better. But the reality was, for a long while, he was also in that conversation. So I feel like that in order to be considered in the top 10, a big part of the criteria is, in your era, you had to be at least in the conversation for best in the league.
You know who would have loved to hear the comment made on Sports Reporter? I'm just thinking about it because of his ego. Isaiah Thomas would have ate that up like candy, because Isaiah Thomas would have been like, "Well, if Stockton's top 10, what am I? What am I?" Because Zeke would have been like, "I won 2 championships. I won a Finals MVP. If he's top 10, what am I?"
I say Zeke. Well, Zeke probably puts himself top 5 anyway, but he probably would have put himself top 1 at that point.
Well, he's basically trying to do it. If you've ever seen him speak about, well, I beat Bird and Magic, and they were both MVPs. Jordan never did that. Like, if you listen to Isaiah Thomas talk basketball, it sounds like the bad boy Pistons won 5 or 6 titles, and not in reality, which they won 2. But it feels like it too. Like, well, that's true. He did beat Bird and he did beat Magic. By the way, though, when he beat Bird, what Bird didn't do, what you didn't hear Bird do or McHale do or Parrish do, they didn't say we were old when you beat us. They didn't say that. By the way, they were old. They were all in their mid-30s. Larry Bird was on the last leg of his career. His back was gone, but he didn't go. He didn't make excuses. Go, well, the only reason the Pistons beat us because we got old. Isaiah Thomas got swept by the Bulls and said the only reason they beat us because we got old. Zeke was 29. Joe Dumars was 27. Rodman was 30, and he said they was old. I want to remind you, when Dennis Rodman left the Detroit Pistons, or when Isaiah Thomas retired, All Dennis Rodman did for the next 6 years would lead the league in rebounding, make all NBA defense, but he was old. But like if he was old when he was 30, then that actually boosters Michael Jordan's argument because Michael Jordan had Rodman when he was 35.
Say if Rodman was if he was old, then say by the time he got to Jordan, he was just straight up prehistoric.
Right. He should he had if he was old when he was 30, he was washed by 35, and Jordan won 3 titles with him when he was washed. Look, Oh, yeah. God, Jory's on fire tonight. Yes. Scottie Pippen for sure thinks that he is better than both LeBron James and Michael Jordan. That is a fact. He truly believes that in his own mind. But you know what? I take that back. Kyle Kuzma is not going to be on Gil's Arena. It's going to be Scottie Pippen.
Oh, that's such a perfect fit for Gil's Arena. Oh, my goodness.
Tell me it's not. He can just sit there and they can throw up these lobs and he'll knock them out the park. He'll be like, you know how many times I had to carry Michael, but people don't know this. Like, oh, yeah, I can see it.
Give it a couple of years and we're going to get Pip Kendrick Perkins in there, aren't we? I feel like Big Perk is a perfect fit because he's already talking about, I was the leader of the clubhouse in OKC. Like,
I remember that.
Like, what were you leading? Like, the catering line? Like, what?
I've heard Perkins say that. You know, it's funny. You take a guy like you know what? I would like to see Isaiah Thomas, Perkins, and Pippen on the same studio talking basketball. That would be fascinating. For obvious reasons, Isaiah still doesn't like Pippen, and Pippen doesn't like Isaiah. But they would be able to unite and go, but you're right. Jordan was, he was okay, but you were the guy. Scottie, you were the guy. You were the one that we feared the most, Scottie.
They would just be gassing up Scottie so hard and they'd be eating it up just to spite Michael. That would be the most entertaining thing ever, honestly. It would be entertaining in its own unique way. Like,
I would watch that multiple times because I think Scottie's a sucker for compliments. They would gas him up, and the more they gas him up, the more he would go after Michael's throat. Like he'd be like, secretly, Phil told me Michael was a chucker. Like, oh, I know.
Meanwhile, third analyst Kendrick Perkins just sitting in the middle, like, you guys would have won 10 rings if you had a center like me leading your locker room.
Perk gassed himself up too. He's like, yeah, I want to score. What my job was to defend and bring physicality. I was an enforcer. Got you.
Yeah. Okay. So I love it. He, all credit. It's funny though. Perk talking crazy kind of like takes away from how good of a job he almost actually did do at that. Like, he was a important piece to that Celtics run. Like, he did his job really well.
Facts.
But the problem is, like, gassing yourself as high as you did with Perk, it just opens you up to ridicule. So if you listen to Perk, you would think he's averaging like 50-25 Wilt numbers. And then you go watch him, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, he souped himself up and nobody can explain to him. Like, you do realize you got to play with 3 Hall of Famers when they were all still playing at a really, really high level. Rondo became a multiple-time All-Star. So you weren't the 4th guy. You were the 5th guy if you're trying to put yourself in there. You were Tito. You were Tito. So I'm just saying, I think Perk had a long, good career. But man, everybody likes to remember themselves like in a different light. You know what I mean? Like, Perk makes it seem like I made sacrifices. If I didn't make those sacrifices, I could have averaged 15, 16 points a game. Not likely. Not from what I saw, not likely.
And he talks about that, like, his game film is hidden, like Will Chamberlain's 100-point game. Like, I can watch you. I watched you. You played in 2008. I watched you play basketball. Like, it isn't some secret. Like, you're talking like you're some 50s player that the film has never been seen. Like, right. I watched you for years. Like,
Good role player.
No, absolutely. Although, you know what I do kind of miss from, watching, those old school games, Mo, I feel like we got to bring back the old school. Give your center the customary couple post ups a game, no matter how bad they are.
Just to make them feel good.
The
The Bulls did that a lot with Cartwright.
Who was I? You know, I'm kid. You know, it's funny though. I would say we should bring that back, Mo, but I feel like the Knicks fans would revolt because they paid that one guy. Was it Eddie?
Eddie Curry.
Yeah, Eddie Curry.
Eddie Curry.
Eddie Curry got paid big money by the Knicks because of that, like, exact form of offense where let's give him the occasional post up, and the Knicks apparently saw something in Eddie Curry, and there's really nothing to see, but they saw something.
Eddie, look, on talent, because there are two different things. Eddie Curry was so much more talented than Tyson Chandler could ever be. He had it all. But what he didn't have is he had a low work ethic, a low motor. He didn't have that want. Tyson Chandler, in terms of work ethic, was an overachiever. And he went on to have a better career. He went on to win, I think he was DPOY once, helped the Mavs win a title. Like on talent, Eddie Curry's supposed to have been a better player, had a better career. But when you watch Eddie Curry play, just lazy, stayed out of shape, just didn't want it. He did just enough to make people think we can fix him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that, to me, that would have been a red flag. But unfortunately for the Knicks, Isaiah Thomas, a great player, awful general manager.
Whoa, one of the worst.
Was the GM at the time. And, the rest is history. Contract so bad, they had Allen Houston on the roster, got a whole, amnesty provision, it was called the Allen Houston clause, and then I think they ended up having to use it on, Eddie Curry. It's the funniest thing ever that they named the clause after Allen Houston when the amnesty clause wasn't even used on Allen Houston.
Right. What I remember when Isaiah was running things was he had Penny Hardaway when Penny Hardaway was when he was done. He wasn't even Penny Hardaway no more. He brought in Steve Francis when he was washed. Remember, Isaiah was the guy that brought T-Mac there when he wasn't T-Mac no more. Isaiah, great player, like you said, but when it came to being a GM, he was a bad GM.
If you guys don't know how bad he was worse than Michael Jordan, the GM. I think considerably worse.
That is saying something because, look, Mike arguably might be the worst GM of all time. Or at least I think he was the president, but he was making the picks. Mike was not a great evaluator of talent. How can you look at film on Kid Gilchrist, look at Kid Gilchrist work out, look at that hideous arm wrestling jump shot, and still go, that's our guy?
Yeah, I feel like the jump shot for sure should have just turned them away, but it's the problem in the draft. People will see an elite defender with a broken jumper, and they'll just go, I can fix his jumper, when that's just 90% of the time you can't. A lot of the times these jumpers that are broken, they're broken. There's a solid, I'd say 10-15% of players that you actually can. But most of the time, if the guy's jumper is broken to the extent of what Michael Kidd Gilchrist was, chances are it's just broken. You're not fixing it.
Facts. Look, Mike made some wild picks. I remember he watched the NCAAs like we're watching right now, and he fell in love with Frank the Tank, and then Frank went to the pros, and you realize he kind of peaked in college. Mike drafted a lot of guys that were really good in college that didn't translate to the next level. He got it right one time. He got Kemba. He got that right. He got Kemba. I think that's the only time he got it right. Because I think by the time he gave up the franchise, I think somebody else made the LaMelo Ball choice.
Yeah, Frank the Tank, Wisconsin legend, but yeah, I think it was abundantly clear, some players, the stats mean something, but some players you can just tell, kind of what they're going to be at the next level, just watching them play and their physicals and how they play basketball. And Frank Kaminsky, I'm like watching him, like he might be fine in like the later first, but probably like second round.
Right.
He's slow. He's not very athletic. He has some floor stretching ability, but he's getting a lot of points off post ups that aren't just going to work at the NBA level. And then he went 10th, and I'm like, no, he didn't. I love Frank, but I'm like, oh, that's a reach, and poor Frank's going to be hated by the Hornets franchise now. Or not the franchise, the fan base. And that drives me up the wall, too. Like, fan bases, stop hating on a player just because a GM drafted him too high. It's not their fault they went there.
That's facts. If they had drafted Frank in, say, the second round at number, I don't know, 30, the fan base would have loved him. They would have fell in love with him. He would have had a different role, and their perception of him would have been different. It just is what it is. I think culture is everything. If Frank had been drafted by the Celtics, even if he had been drafted by your Bucks, he would have been with better culture. The one thing Michael Jordan couldn't do, he never could do, was develop any type of culture when he was in control of things. And I'm not trying to smash Michael Jordan. I'm just saying what it was. He wasn't good at evaluating talent, and he never was able to develop any kind of culture.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I love Frank the Tank, but yeah, and you know, it's funny. He was actually he was a good role player. He was a solid role player once they moved him to the bench and took the focus off of him so much. Like, he gave some productive minutes in that, in the 2021 finals, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was one of those, you're on the other team, you suck, but also I'm really happy to see you thriving, Frank. So
right.
But I say, yeah, that is all the time we have for tonight, Mo. Anything you want to add before we get up on out of here?
No, just thank you guys so much for joining Brett and I. This is the first leg of our double-double. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you check out all the great content we have at Wire to Wire. Make sure you check out your bracket, see how well you're doing. Enjoy the rest of the tournament. We'll see you guys tomorrow on Coffee and Sports in the Morning.
Oh, man. It looks like we have another upset, by the way. Number 11, Drake Bulldogs just upset Missouri 67-57.
Oh, wow.
Arkansas took down Kansas. So a couple upsets. So everybody's bracket's probably already cooked at this point. But
mine is.
Like I said, yeah, I appreciate the love, guys. Thank you. Some exciting. Obviously tomorrow we got the morning show. And then catch us as we do it all again Monday with the morning show, the sports report. We're really going to make sure to keep bringing you great content, articles. Hopefully we'll get some more stuff out for you, but make sure you tune in tomorrow to the morning show. But until then, enjoy the rest of your night and have a great weekend.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page and join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful day.